Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. I often say that this channel is about real expertise without the agendas of self-appointed gurus, and I believe that it is. What I offer on this channel is information without trying to put in my own, personal opinions or isms or ideologies to it. But in a realm like YouTube, a lot of the, should I say, competition for attention is from gurus, right? People who are looking to spread a particular ideology, usually one that puts them at the top of some intellectual or moral hierarchy. And I really think that there's something very unfortunate about this. And while this is not one of the typical topics for my channel, in fact, I probably haven't made a video about a personal opinion thing like this in 6 years. I just wanted to sort of, because it was on my mind and I was in the mood, and because it's going to take me a long time to edit a lot of the other content from Sweden, I want to talk about the antidotes to, perhaps being taken in by a guru. This is not about my secrets to being a success or an alpha, right, which isn't even a good reflection of how wolfpacks work in the wild, or being popular or being rich, because I'm none of these things. It's perhaps a little bit of advice about how to, or how I have managed to stay on task and keep my wits about me in the kind of difficult world that we all live in and we're all always going to live in. So I don't have a program or an ideology to sell you here. I just have some advice. And what this advice perhaps resembles most in tone and spirit is an Old Norse text called, in reconstructed Old Norse pronunciation, Havamal, and in modern Icelandic pronunciation, Halvamal. Now, I don't have an ideology to sell you, but I want to tell you that if you want to look at Old Norse wisdom, you should check this book out in my translation with the Old Norse text too. I am not sourcing from it here, but what I'm doing is kind of following in its spirit of saying, here are things I've experienced, and here's some kind of isolated bits of advice that I've got, right? It's not a program, it's not an ideology, it's not about having all the answers, because wisdom is open-ended, right? No one, not me, not any guru of any stripe, has ever been to the top of that mountain and has, the commandments to hand back to you about how to be, the best or the wisest person or something. There's no best and there's no wisest. It's open-ended. What you want is that the day that you die is the day that you're the wisest, right? I will never have all the answers. Neither will you. Neither will any of them. But I have some tips on asking, should I say, the right questions of life and being open to the answers as they present themselves. You aren't done making mistakes, and neither am I. And, I think that sometimes we have this notion that you can convert your way instantly out of a problem, right? If I find the right message or messenger, if I adopt just the right ideology or program, religion, political view, leader, whatever, I'm going to suddenly have my problems fixed. You cannot convert your way instantly out of a problem. You can learn your way slowly out of a problem. You can do things slowly to get yourself out of a problem. But just giving up the notion that there is some, day after which everything is different and you will be reborn is pretty ridiculous. Everything is incremental progress, but every little bit of incremental progress is progress. It's good. You are never going to have perfection. But in fact, there's that common phrase, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Well, the reason is because the perfect doesn't exist. So waiting for the perfect, expecting the perfect is potentially preventing you from doing things that are going to make your life better. And being able to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you make along the way without expecting that, the day comes when after which you no longer make mistakes is going to make a huge difference. Because if you think to yourself, and look, I've been all my life tempted to think this way, so I understand what I'm talking about. I think if you think to yourself, once that magic moment, whatever it is, a conversion or, I get sober or something like that happens after that, I'm a better person. It's, there's a line that's crossed. And before that, I made mistakes. And before that, I was a worse person and, or even a bad person. And after that, I don't make mistakes anymore. After that, I'm a good person. You are setting yourself up for a big problem because you are going to make some mistake eventually again. You are not ever going to reach this clear dividing line between bad life and good life, right? You are going to maybe incrementally improve. And along the way, as Havamal itself says, Mart gengur ver en varir. Much goes worse than one expects. So, you are going to once again be in the stressful positions you've been in before, and you're going to be in new stressful positions that you could never anticipate. Sometimes those stressful positions are going to force you or push you into doing things that you're going to regret later, even potentially doing harm, hopefully not, you know, physical harm, but, in doing things that you wish you hadn't done to another person, right? I certainly have. Not confessing any crimes, have no crimes to confess. I'm not talking about physically hurting. I'm talking about, being a lesser person than one could be. Right? So you aren't done making mistakes. Neither am I. That's one maybe punchy title that I can give to this section. And another punchy-ish title that I might give it is you can't convert yourself instantly out of a problem, but you can slowly learn your way out, and you can slowly do your way out, maybe. By the way, I mentioned Havamal, and my next little punchy-ish line here is, no pre-modern ideology is a perfect guide to flourishing in modern life. A lot of gurus say you need to follow this ancient book exactly, or that ancient book exactly, or actually more often what it is you need to follow my interpretation of what is maybe in there, or you need to follow sort of my instincts, my intuitions, and then I'm going to kind of pass them off as being derived from an ancient source. Very often the people preaching supposedly based on the Bible aren't saying anything that sounds remotely like any part of the Bible. The people preaching based supposedly on Havamal are saying something that doesn't sound remotely like Havamal, which is always funny to me because you can read Havamal in about 40 minutes. But so it's like you could find out pretty quickly if these people are actually following in its spirit. But there is no pre-modern text that is a perfect guide to flourishing in modern times, right? There are challenges that they didn't anticipate. There are social situations they didn't anticipate. So you are not going to find all of the answers there, not even in Havamal. Not to say that there's not a lot of wisdom in ancient texts. I tend to think that where human nature is concerned, the older the text, the more you can learn about it. And where everything else is concerned, the newer the text, probably the more you can learn about it. And then no non-human animal is the perfect guide to flourishing in human life. People who say, well, we're just animals, so we can act like bonobos or chimps or gorillas, or sometimes it's wolves. Well, none of those animals face life in which you might pay 2.5 times more to sell a house than you pay to unwisely buy it, to cite one of my most recent embarrassments, just to remind you that I have them and regrets and mistakes. What in a freaking wolf's or chimpanzee's experience gives me, or hunter-gatherer, homo, whatever, from habilis to sapiens sapiens, life is going to tell me how to handle that. You, there is no closed set. Just like I said earlier, wisdom is open-ended, and it is not contained entirely in any pre-modern text. It's not contained entirely in the lifestyle of any society or animal. Now, again, pre-modern text, I think there's a lot of wisdom there. Really hope you'd like to check out my translations of Old Norse texts. There's the Wanderer's Havamal, which has the Old Norse text of Havamal, and then There's my second edition of the Poetic Edda translation, which is coming out later this year. Got to put the stuff out there because, again, I'm not selling an ideology, but I am sort of selling books of information. If you'd like to read the original sources of Norse myth, you should check out my books. And one of the best places you can get them is on grimfrost.com. Those guys make cool replica Viking stuff too that you should check out. I was just with them for a large part of the month of June. Anyway, more stuff. You are more like everyone else than you think. So am I. You are not, well, you're an individual, but you are not, a particularly different individual. There are things you can learn from other people's lives, those who have gone before you and those who live around you. You probably already know the wisest person that you'll ever meet. You probably already know the best person that you'll ever meet and the worst person you'll ever meet. You are surrounded by people who share a lot of the same experiences as you do, and listening to them humbly, no matter how much they agree or disagree with you, is a good guide to picking up some tips, because their challenges are probably a lot more like yours than you anticipate. I would much rather listen to my remaining older family members about any given topic than listen to some stranger on the internet tell me how to handle X, Y, or Z. Forgiveness is the only way to grow. I mentioned earlier, because there's not going to be some moment where you suddenly become wise or good or best or moral or whatever. You're only going to incrementally improve. You have to be able to forgive yourself for the moments when you did things that you wouldn't do now, right? I don't have a magic secret to getting good at this. I've only sort of slowly gotten better at it over time. And of course, one of the things that's hard is being bountiful with forgiveness while not with permissiveness, right? Like, knowing that I can forgive myself for my mistakes is not a permission structure for making those mistakes. But I think that actually forgiveness in its most bountiful form is the opposite of that kind of permissiveness, because when we are not ready to forgive ourselves, it means that any small mistake can become a much bigger mistake, right? This is one of the ways that I've been sober for almost 10 years. I'll be sober for 10 years in October. Is that I remind myself often when I'm tempted to drink, which is not really in social environments. I was tempted to drink in isolation and dealing with depression. That the the addict's mind wants that one drink, because that one drink is the permission for 100 drinks, right? Saying, "Oh, I've screwed up my almost 10-year record. Well, now it doesn't really matter because I might as well drink 100 drinks." But if you can forgive yourself for that one drink, if you just, despite everything, you just couldn't help but do it, that can be the secret that keeps you from having those 99, because you're still making incremental progress. I'm proud of my record of 10 years of sobriety, but the sobriety is more important than the record, if that makes a sense. And that's what's kept me, if that makes sense, and that's what's kept me making the record. There's no magic trick to this. It's hard, right? One thing I've told graduate students for a million years is, people want the easy way to get information, or the easy way to learn this, or the easy way to, assemble this corpus of data. And the thing I've been telling graduate students for a million years is the easy way is the hard way. It's just doing it, right? And there's not necessarily profound wisdom in that, but one day you may find yourself reflecting that, yeah, that's right. All the shortcuts were poor ways to get to where I could have just worked my way to slowly but surely. Don't plan on being what no one you know is. So many gurus are trying to sell you, like, oh, you can be rich beyond your wildest dreams if you pay me whatever amount a month, or join my program, or, buy my book, or whatever, or watch my YouTube channel, or buy my perfume, or whatever damn thing, right? If you don't know anyone who's rich beyond your wildest dreams, if you don't know anyone who's an alpha beyond their wildest dreams, again, just thinking about the stuff that influencers talk about all the time, it's not that likely that you're actually going to be one. Again, people aren't that different from you, and the people around you are a pretty good guide to what you can be. You probably know people who are moderately happy. That's what I aspire to be, right? I'm fantastically lucky in some departments. I have an incredibly beautiful fiance, I'm in the top 1% of luck on that. I'm somewhere in the middle of luck on health. I'm in, globally speaking, very high in luck on wealth. First world speaking, somewhere in the middle, I guess. I certainly have money struggles, but no one is a perfect example of scoring a 10 on everything, right? We all have a mix of scores on different things, and you will too. And the people around you are too. No one is as happy or satisfied or dominant or whatever as any guru pretends to be. Anger rests in the heart of fools. That's going to be my one quote from Ecclesiastes from the Old Testament. Again, no old book has all the answers. Not all of them all, not the Bible, but there's a lot to be found in old books, regardless of whether you believe in the God in question or not. I am not a believer in the literal existence of any God, but I believe in the truth of many old reflections on human nature, which are contained in many old religious and mythical texts. Like many of the books of the Bible really isn't one book, or a text like Havamal again. And then I'll quote the New Testament one time: judge a tree by its fruit. Again, look at gurus a little more objectively. Don't look at what they say about themselves. Consider whether anyone you know is as smugly self-satisfied as they are, because you have a better sense of the people you know and how they actually feel. Probably no one, and you probably know someone who is as happy as anyone else can be. You probably know someone who is as miserable as anyone else can be. Those are your guideposts, not what someone pretends on the internet. And finally, prep for losing your job, not for the end of the world. Something I'm a little vulnerable to. I have a little bit of a paranoid streak, but I feel a lot more ready for all the challenges that are coming to me, prepping for the ones that I've actually seen happen. If you're ready to lose your job, if you're ready to lose your car, if you're ready to lose your health, all those things can give out any minute. It's not so likely that nuclear apocalypse is just over the horizon. It could be, but it could have been at any point in the last 80 years. So, and I don't know how to prepare for it. But if I'm prepared for minor disasters, wildfire in my area, for example, is a big disaster. I dealt with that last year. I'm much more likely to have the peace of mind and perhaps some of the equipment and training to deal with some major, again, like a nuclear catastrophe level disaster. Well, I'm already tired of listening to myself, but that is a little bit of my antidote to gurus. I may make more of this, may make something of a series out of it. I'll let the market judge, as it were. I'll see if people care for this video or not. And if you don't, of course, there's lots of other videos on this channel about Norse myth and language and runes. I hope you'll check those out. They are presented without ideology or, without the objective of personal glory. I'll leave you with one last quote. I love what Robinson Jeffers said about being what failure cannot cast down, nor success make proud. And I am who I am regardless of the successes or failures that may befall me. I am never going to be some unimaginable success. I'm never going to be some unimaginable failure. I'm always going to be well within the human limits that I learn from the people actually around me and from ancient texts absorbed for their wisdom rather than for their existential truth. All right. Well, from beautiful Colorado, I'm wishing you all the best.